So, if you've gathered already from my channel, you'll know that I don't tend to talk much about, new movies, new releases and whatnot. I mean, if this background tells you anything, I kind of have an affinity for the classic stuff. That's why I enjoy it. It's why I enjoy talking about. However, I've got to make an exception today for Sinners. And here's why. So as I said at the top of the video, I don't tend to cover a lot of new releases and new films on my channel, and the main reason being, especially in the past year or so, I have a podcast for doing that. Yeah, cheeky little plug before we get into the full video, but I run a film podcast with Mr. R Productions on his channel called The Double Feature Podcast, and that podcast, as well as talking about some classic movies, we tend to talk about a lot of new stuff. So we talk about current movie news, new releases, and each episode we spotlight a particular new film. We've covered stuff like Deadpool and Wolverine, Joker Folie à Deux, Mickey 17, and recently a Minecraft movie. The podcast, each episode is once a month, so we can't cover everything. We can't spotlight everything, especially during the summer now. Loads of big blockbusters are coming out, and we can't cover absolutely everything. However, there's one film that has very recently come out, but by the time that we get around to the next episode, it would probably be a bit too late to really cover it. And it really annoys me because we've both seen this film, me and Mr. L, and I really, really, really wish that we could have done a spotlight on this, but to quote Thanos,
fine. I'll do it myself.
Because this film needs all the attention, needs all the discussion in the world, and that's Sinners. So, let's just get talking about it. So Sinners is the latest film directed by Ryan Coogler, who you all will know from the Black Panther duology from Marvel. He directed the first Creed movie, and this is his first original film. And after helming a bunch of IP films, I think we're all kind of interested to see what he was going to do with like an original concept. And this one, a vampire horror genre film, set in like Jim Crow era American South, like Mississippi, with blues music being like a core part of the film and its story, and it's a really creative out there concept. Obviously it's an original film, so I'm always going to champion that, and this absolutely delivered. And it's the kind of film that, it's what we've been craving for God knows how long now. And as for it being like a horror film, you look at this, you look at Nosferatu, The Substance. We've had some great horror films recently, which is, really exciting to see for the genre, because it's a great genre, and I love seeing great films that use the genre in really interesting, fun, inventive ways, like Sinners does. So let's get on with actually talking about the film properly. So as I say, the film is set in like the old American South of like the 1930s in Mississippi, I believe, and it follows the Smokestack twins, both played by Michael B. Jordan, and they're this duo of gangsters who are returning home, and they're going to try and start their own blues club and whatnot. And I don't really want to talk about the plot and like break down the plot here, because it's a film that you've got to go into kind of blind in terms of the plot, because there's so many great unexpected and surprising things that you don't expect because of how fun and novel and creative the film is. So I don't really want to spoil and break down the plot as such, because in terms of the plot, it's not overly complicated. All you really need to know is that it's a vampire horror movie with blues music going in. That's kind of what you need to know about it. But it's how this film is executed that just makes it tick. I mean, from the second it opens, you are gripped with this film, with the hook of the opening scene, like chronologically being one of the last scenes of the film, and it the whole film is basically a flashback, and you're with the main character, Sammy, who's got this broken guitar, and you're just kind of left wondering, how the hell has this transpired? And then the film goes through the events leading up to that moment, and it's so gripping throughout. Now, one thing I have heard against this film by quite a few people is that they found the first half quite slow, and to an extent, I do get that. The second half is much more where the action and the vampire stuff comes into it more. But for me, I love the first half. I adore the aesthetic of this thing, the production design, the costumes, the blues music is incredible. Like, not just the actual score is just great to listen to, but the way the music is incorporated into the story with the whole superstition of blues music and vampires, and there's certain scenes of how the power of music and how it brings people together, and how it transcends the normal world. It can transcend time in that one scene. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean, and I do not want to spoil it, because that scene I'm talking about, I don't want to sound pretentious when I talk about it, but it is really something else. It's so unique, and it's an idea that I have always wanted to kind of see realised, And to see it realised in this film was just like, it took me a second to clock what they were actually doing with it, and it's just it's absolute magic. It really is magic. But as I was saying about the vibe of the film, I love the aesthetic of like the 1930s South, you know, in that I love that vibe of it, you know, all the costumes, the production design, all the different sets. I love all of that sort of stuff. It's just an era that I really love the aesthetic of and whatnot. And that's why for me the first half, even though yes it is a slow burn, it is building up the mystery of what's going on with the vampires, what's the smokestack twins doing, what are they doing. I honestly didn't mind the slow pace, because I like it when the film and stories anyway can just sort of take their time, and because I love this world and I love these characters and this cast of characters sort of forming together as like as a group, as a collective, I didn't mind it being kind of slow paced. I could bask in this world for hours. I really love the ensemble cast in this film. There's so many great performances all around. You know, you've got great actors, Jack O'Connell, Delroy Lindo, Haley Steinfeld, some fantastic performances throughout from all those guys, and just everyone in the cast as well. But I want to give a main shout out to Miles Catton, who played Sammy, who for his first film is genuinely fantastic. And that he's a great audience surrogate. You know, you kind of follow the story through his eyes in a way, it's very much from his perspective and whatnot. But Michael B. Jordan as both of the Smokestack twins, he's something else in this film. You know, the contrast of how differently he plays both of the brothers, it's brilliant. But also the nuance he puts into both characters is brilliant. And also, you know, from a filmmaking point of view, the effect of both of them on screen is pretty much seamless. Like you can't tell. I genuinely couldn't tell. Of course, despite being a genre film that is entertaining, there are obviously plenty of themes and ideas that it's exploring. I mentioned the one with the music and how it, you know, blues music and just music in general can bring people together and can transcend the normal world and normal rules of the world. But of course, you know, there is a lot of themes about race and, you know, segregation. Obviously, it's set during Jim Crow America and whatnot. And I'm not the expert on this as a white guy, but I think it is, you know, well incorporated into the film. You know, it's using the horror genre, you know, with vampires in this case as, you know, the personification of, you know, obviously the predominantly white vampires, you know, sucking the life out of the black blues club that you have here. You know, it's not the most complex metaphor, you know, it's pretty easy to pick up on, but it's not telling you that's the theme. You just infer that yourself, and I like that. Because yes, it does have something to say, but, you know, horror films are always about exploring, you know, ideas and themes within our culture and within society. You know, the monsters in a horror film are usually a metaphor for, you know, some idea or some concept or some theme. That's the point of horror. That's the appeal of it, really. But I never found it distracting. It adds texture to the world, and it was never distracting. The thing is, well, you can still enjoy this film in a passive way. It's still really entertaining, particularly in the second half of the film, with more of the action spectacle with the vampires, and there's the Irish dance that Jack O'Connell leads, which is really fun, and just like, it's really, really fun and so bonkers and so wild towards the end as well. You know, you care about when characters get picked off and whatnot, and it's just a real thrill ride. It's such a fun time, but has stuff to say, and you know, it's the best of both worlds, and it's what I look for in films. You know, an original film with something to say, but it's entertaining. You know, you can do all three. Why are we not doing this more? Hollywood, come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. And I'm just really glad that this film is doing as well as it is. You know, it's an original film that is making a splash, and it's great. And look, as much fun we've had as we've had with Minecraft, I don't want that to be the benchmark for Hollywood. I don't want that to be the benchmark for films, because yeah, it was a fun experience with the memes and whatnot, but as a film, my God, if you were watching that just purely like objectively, without any of the bias or any of the meme kind of like experience and whatnot, it's absolute garbage. But this film, Sinners, is incredible, and it's kind of what really we should be aiming more of. We should have more films like Sinners. And a friend of mine who also saw this film put it best: you will pay to see much worse than this. So it's still in theaters at the minute, so if you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it, please. You will not regret it. You won't regret it. It's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I know this was not the, you know, longest video in the world, but I just wanted to spread the word about Sinners. I wanted to talk about it because I knew we weren't going to spotlight it on the podcast, and it was a shame, you know, a shame we weren't going to do it, because it was just a fantastic film, and I hope you go and watch it. And if you have seen it, what did you think of it? With all that said, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, click the bell so you don't miss a thing, and until next time, take care and have a good day. And watch Sinners. Do it!
great!